Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. Just a reminder, the Steel City Underground is a member of the Champion Sports Network. Launching here in August, the Champion Sports Network is a collection of niche websites custom tailored to the sports teams that you love to follow. You could check them out over at championsportsnetwork.com, or you could also head on over to Twitter, search for Champion Sports Network, or of course, if you're already following us, check out the Steel City Underground Twitter page. You'll find their tag right in our bio description. Today's topic on the Steel City Underground podcast, based off an article that I put out about a week and a half ago when we found out what jersey numbers that the Steelers rookies would elect to wear. Maybe not for this season, but at least temporarily. As we know, a lot of rookies get issued just straight up garbage numbers. But however, Bud Dupree did keep number 48 from preseason and training camp on through the regular season. So never say never there. But a lot of times players will elect to change their numbers, because right now some players are even issued double numbers depending on their position, as the Steelers and actually all the NFL teams are keeping their rosters at 90 players right now that'll eventually get trimmed to 53 for the regular season. So we're already seeing this in full effect. If you didn't have a chance to see what the rookies are wearing, I will go through the list real quick. First rounder Artie Burns is actually going to wear number 25 that was previously worn by Brandon Boykin last year. Of course, Boykin no longer a member of the Steelers, now a member of the Carolina Panthers. You have the second round safety Sean Davis, just picked up recently released cornerback Cortez Allen's number 28. Well, we round out the rest of the list with Javon Hargrave wearing 79, Gerald Hawkins with 65. Travis Feeney will actually resume wearing the same number he wore in college. Not a very popular linebacker number, but number 41. That's kind of cool. I like that one, actually, and probably because he wore it in college too. So wide receiver DeMarcus Ayers gets number 82. That's a number we are familiar with. More on that in a second. And linebacker Tyler Matakevich will wear 46. That's one of the ugly numbers, right? So I guess it would just be cool to just say you wore whatever number and actually say you're a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I can't really dog it. You know, they could give me double zeros for all it matters, and I would be more than happy just to say that I was a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers at one point in my career. But today's topic, aside from the rookies, I had the pleasure of speaking on Sirius XM NFL radio on the opening drive with Ross Tucker and Bob Papa. And I called in just like any other average Joe, and pun maybe not intended, but I hope I am a little bit above average Joe. Nonetheless, got to talk with Ross Tucker and Bob Papa as a call in, and I'm going to play a clip from that here in a second. But the main topic over on Sirius XM NFL radio this morning was retired jerseys, and NFL teams don't do it, or NFL teams do it in such an excess. There's only a certain amount of numbers that are allocated to each of the positions on the field. So some of you may already be aware of that and some may not. So for example, kickers, punters, quarterbacks, they're allocated somewhere from, I think, number 1 through, wide receivers also get to go into the teens too. So that's why you see most of your single digits are either those special teamers like your punters or kickers, your quarterbacks might wear a number like 12 or 16 or something like that. But that's not entirely limited just to them either, because some wide receivers, you see Marcus Wheaton has number 11, Martavis Bryant had number 10. So, and then previously Santonio Holmes also wearing number 10 as well. So what happens when a team retires the jersey numbers? And let's say wide receivers, for example. So you have, aside from a few of those numbers in the teens, like 17 was a number occupied by Mike Wallace, but also you had Emmanuel Sanders wore number 88, and that was also worn by another famous Steeler, Lynn Swann, of course. But not all of the numbers that the Steelers had worn in the past, some of those famous players had worn, have been reissued. So it's a very interesting an intriguing concept, because one of the topics were The Oakland Raiders, or previously the Los Angeles Raiders and then previously the Oakland Raiders, have never retired a number in their entire history. And if they decide to just retire one, then why this guy instead of that guy and that guy? So it starts a little bit of a snowball effect because you could only do so much. And we see that with some of the numbers that the Steelers haven't reissued and then some that have been reissued. For example, Rod Woodson's number 26, that's a number that is now occupied by Le'Veon Bell. I said previously Manny Sanders wore 88. That was Lynn Swann's number. This year's 7th-round draft pick, DeMarcus Ayers, is wearing 82, which was worn by John Stallworth. But there are a number of jersey numbers that have not been reissued since certain players have retired. So I'm going to go through that list here in a second, but I want to play this clip from Sirius NFL XM Radio, and you check it out. I think I just butchered that. I think it's Sirius XM NFL Radio. Try saying it 3 times fast. I'm telling you, I'm going crazy. Somebody told me that over on, I think, YouTube the other day.
Hey, good morning, guys. Long-time listener, listen to you every morning, really appreciate it. I totally agree with what you said about the 49ers there, but I want to talk about the Steelers, similar situation. We don't have a Ring of Honor, so to speak. Long-time fan for the Steelers. I run a blog and a podcast too, and I just did this research. I think I put this out last week. And the Steelers, well, we only have 2 official retired jerseys, okay? We have Ernie Stautner's number 70, and then just most recently we did Mean Joe Green's number 75. But we have a number of jerseys that we haven't reissued since these players have retired. And if you got a second, I can go through the whole list here.
Well, we've kind of gone through it already earlier in the show.
Oh, okay. So we have like 10 names here. We got Franco, Bettis, Bradshaw, most recently Troy Polamalu, and I kind of doubt too that Heath Miller is 83, might be up for grabs, but I don't know how soon. Ben, his number 7 might last for a while just based on the personnel groups, but we did see Lynn Swann and John Stallworth 88 and 82. In fact, 82 was just issued to our 7th rounder DeMarcus Ayers. So, like you guys are saying, they do only have a finite pool of numbers to go through. So,
yeah, we kind of talked about that because Jerome Bettis was on yesterday, Joe, and we were talking about Bruce Smith, jersey retired, and Jerome mentioned that the Steelers only have 2 retired, but then they keep other ones out of circulation. Don't you think that that's a little weird, though, Joe? I mean, in all sincerity, I know you're a Steelers fan, but it's like, don't you think the other guys might look at Joe Green's being retired and say, well, if Joe gets it, what about us? Or do you think Joe is deserving of essentially being the only modern-era Steeler to have it retired?
Yeah, I have to go with the latter. Mean Joe Green kind of transcends the entire, when you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, it's Mean Joe Green, everything on the field, off the field with the Coke commercial and even, working with the scouting department for all those years. I think he's above and beyond when you're talking about one of those numbers that should be immortalized. And I think
I said earlier, Joe, I think if you listen and talk to guys that played for those teams, they all feel that way as well. They don't begrudge him of that. They think if there's only one, it's him. I just think that's why the Steelers haven't retired anybody else, because then if you do Bradshaw, then do you have to do Lambert and Ham? Or if you do Blunt, do you have to do Franco? And on and on and on. So it's quite the honor for Joe Green to be the only one of that group to have it inducted.
Okay, so there you have it. Pretty straightforward. The Steelers do not have a Ring of Honor or any type of Hall of Fame, and they only have 2 jersey numbers that are officially retired, Ernie Stautner and Mean Joe Green. And obviously you see my thoughts reflect those of guys I tremendously respect, meaning not only other Steelers, but some of the radio personalities like Ross. So to actually go down and list the numbers for those jerseys that haven't been reissued, since I didn't have a chance to do that on the air. Here we go. We have number 1, which was Gary Anderson's. Obviously a great kicker during his time, and just, wow, that guy played forever, didn't he? Then you have number 12, which was Terry Bradshaw's, obviously. 32, which was Franco Harris. 36, the bust, Jerome Bettis, most recent inductee into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Number 43, Troy Polamalu. Number 52, Mike Webster. Number 58, Jack Lambert, followed with number 59, Jack Ham. Center Dermontti Dawson, who wore number 63, also in the Hall of Fame. And then the most recent, really just following before Troy Polamalu here, was number 86, Hines Ward. So I do think that Hines Ward is Hall of Fame caliber, and he's definitely it's one of those things where I wonder if his number doesn't end up being reissued like 88 or 82 had been in the past. Now I'm thinking about it, I think 82 was also worn by Antoine Randall L. as well. But you know what? He did that a good service wearing that number with that gadget play in the Super Bowl, and what was that, the longest, maybe the only NFL pass in Super Bowl history by a wide receiver. Definitely the longest. And definitely the most memorable, right? For at least for us Steelers fans. So there you have some of the numbers that hadn't been reissued. And one of the things I didn't really get into a lengthy discussion, of course, you know, you're calling in and you have a short amount of time to speak with these guys, is that, okay, Heath Miller's in that, also in that same territory of tight ends and wide receivers that wear numbers in the 80s. So number 83 is definitely one that could be up for grabs here in the near future. I think it's going to take a few years of just Heath to kind of be out of sight, out of mind. A little bit different than maybe like a Rod Woodson, because I would think Rod Woodson's 26 wouldn't have been something very popular to pick up. But then again, Rod did leave and play with the Baltimore Ravens and the Oakland Raiders during a period of time. And he's actually still a coach over in Oakland too, which is pretty cool. Actually, Rod Woodson, one of my favorites, absolutely, growing up. I'm a younger guy here, so I didn't have the opportunity to grow up watching the Steelers teams of the 70s and the Steel Curtain. So unfortunately, the only way I get to live those moments are through any type of clips and stuff like that. And of course, all the great stories you guys tell us about that, right? So Heath Miller, though, number 83, that is one that I think eventually will be reissued. But as I said on the air, you know, Ben Roethlisberger, there's not going to be, there's enough numbers that are available there. And so I had someone teasing me over on social media last year about the unofficial retired jersey thing, because for a long period of time, no one had occupied or taken number 8. And for those of you who remember, number 8 was previously worn by Tommy Maddox before Ben Roethlisberger became the man in Pittsburgh. The Tommy gun was wearing number 8, and unfortunately, a disservice was done to that number. I think it's cursed now that Josh Scobie came in last year and wore that as a kicker. But I do think, though, that Ben Roethlisberger's number 7 will be safe for a very, 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 very long time. And of course, the number 12 jersey is one that someone actually suggested on the radio, that so many great quarterbacks and players have worn that throughout the years. Maybe it should just be retired across the NFL. So Terry Bradshaw's number is not going anywhere either. But I thought it was a pretty cool little discussion this morning, and I had to jump in there, and I wanted to share that with you guys because I was just like anybody else. I was just geeked up in being able to talk about my Steelers, our Steelers, and just kind of one of the odd traditions that they have versus like some teams like the San Francisco 49ers that just, they've retired so many jerseys, they really don't have an option but to reissue some of those here in the near future. So guys, once again, number 70 and number 75, those are completely off limits. We'll see if 1, 12, 32, 36, 43, 52, 58, 59, 63, 86, 83, and 7 here in the near future ever get reissued. But the other one that's got to be on your mind is number 84. Antonio Brown, what was it? Pro Football Focus just said he is the second best player in the NFL, just in a recent rundown article that they had of the top 100 players that they did on their site. And you got to think about the things that Antonio Brown has done on and off the football field, too. Because, I mean, look at this. He's doing this Dancing with the Stars thing. It's just incredible. And AB is just off the charts. He is doing things that no other wide receiver has done. And you have to think that's one of those numbers that just gets pulled off the radar. Could he be the next Joe Green to achieve things that just transcend even the greats, even those other numbers I had just listed? I don't know. I think his story is still being written, but he definitely is making a strong case to have a Hall of Fame type career. Ladies and gentlemen, always appreciate you listening. Don't forget, invite your friends, tell a friend, leave a review over on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.